morning, everybody. We're going to get started a minute or two early, so there may be a few people coming in, and I know that there's some people standing, so there's probably a seat here or there. I'm certainly not surprised that this is incredibly crowded, this workshop. So welcome. My name is Mary Adams, and I'm Associate Executive Director at University Settlement The Door, and thrilled to be here moderating this workshop with concern. I have Andrea Dogostiano, right?
Yeah.
James Mutton, Daniel Stern, and Robin Smith here to talk about more than self-care, what agencies experience with with staff wellness and resiliency. I think, and I looked at their PowerPoint, it's phenomenal, so you won't be disappointed that you came to this workshop. But I think what's going to happen in this room is that a lot of what gets talked about and gets said is really going to be very intuitive to you. And some of it will be known to your agencies, but a lot of it has not been articulated, even in ourselves, with our own self-care practices, but in our policies, in our organizations, in our agencies, and larger in our field. So what's really thrilling about this workshop is it will take sort of what we know at our gut level and put it into an operational form that they've done in their organization and continue to grow, and involves feedback from their staff and from participants. So really, really great stuff. So we're gonna go into the presentation, and then we'll have a lot of time to ask questions at the end. So feel free to jot them down, on your paper, on your hand, and then we'll get to that after we get started. Oh, let me make sure. Okay. So there you go. It's worth me reading this out loud just because I think it's really helpful to understand sort of the foundation and where this came from. Concern for Independent Living was founded in 1972 by a group of parents and friends of psychiatrically disabled persons in Central Islip, in the Central Islip State Hospital. The mission is to provide housing and services that enrich lives and strengthen communities. This is achieved by developing high-quality, attractive housing together with the provision of services that help people thrive in the communities of their choice. Currently, they provide housing for 1,500 adults and 250 children. That's 1,096 units. And they have 311 in development. And they're in Nassau, Suffolk, Kings, and Bronx, so urban and suburban. 120 sites, 250 locations, single site, scattered site, mixed-use housing, and 325 employees. So you can be putting that into perspective as they go along with their workshop. Do you want to say anything about your beautiful buildings, or are we just showing this so that everybody can see how beautiful your buildings are?
Thanks, Mary. No, it's just to give you an idea of the different types of housing we have. We have, ground-up projects, mixed use, and some very suburban-looking buildings as well. So, thanks. All right. So, good morning, everybody. We're trying to not make this a shameless self-promotion of self-care. We want. It's not just a show and tell. We're actually here to talk about a couple of things that we do, but we're also going to show you a few things that you can actually take home today to your staff. And give you some helpful hints. So let's go back to the other slide, sorry. So our average work weeks, right? We can only take in so much. And last year I chaired a panel on vicarious trauma with Mary, and we talked about how the impact, it's not just about burnout, but what we take in and then take home with us, and how it manifests in our lives in all kinds of ways, not just through transference and burnout, but any kinds of issues, substance use, financial issues, family issues. So we have been doing this as an agency now for a number of years, and the point I want to make is that this is about a complete buy-in from everybody in concern. Our executive director's in another room right now talking about housing development and funding, but he is somebody, Ralph Fasano, who bought into this from the get-go and really makes sure that everybody else speaks about that as well. And we also wanted to talk to you about it in that a lot of this is volunteer-driven. It's not about money. It's not about needing to find a ton of resources. You can really do this stuff with the existing staff and programming and resources that you have. And we want you to do it with not only your staff, but also your tenants and clients too. So let's go to that. So we came up with this idea. We call it the 8 dimensions of wellness at work. And I'm just going to quickly go over these, and then we're going to talk about a couple of them and get into the nitty-gritty. So as I mentioned, agency buy-in, it starts at the top, right? You can't do this work unless you have a commitment from supervisory staff, program director staff, your CFO, your ED, to really invest in your workforce. Employee recognition and validation. We've started something called the SPARK, which is a Special Performance Achievement Recognition and Commendation Award. And this is a volunteer-driven nomination process to nominate several staff a year for an award in their area. And they get at the holiday party, a $250 gift certificate, and rightfully embarrassed and given a plaque in front of everybody. But it's a simple, cheap way that goes a long way to recognizing people. Intellectual and educational. We offer at Concern some scholarship reimbursements. We hooked up with a couple of schools, social work schools, to offer credits. We offer some low-cost loans, which people can refinance and actually get paid back if they commit to staying with the agency after graduation for a couple of years. And there are many ways to finance educational scholarships cheaply as a nonprofit without spending a lot of money. Intellectual and emotional. We obviously want to encourage staff movement and career growth within the agency, and as much as possible we're encouraging people to apply for other jobs. We have a lot of stuff in development now, housing-wise, and it's a good time for development, and we're about to do a big veterans project in Coney Island, and these open up positions for line staff and case management staff to apply for supervisory jobs. But sometimes people apply for the jobs and they're not quite right for the position. They don't have enough experience yet. And what we're saying to staff is don't give up there. Although you may apply for a job and the time may not be right for that particular opportunity, let's find a way to mentor you with somebody else within the agency to get you that experience, so that by the time the next project comes along a year or two later, you'll be ready. And that's especially important for people looking for entry-level supervisory jobs. And so we'll pair people up to spend part of their work week mentoring with other staff in the agency. Career and financial, again, you know, we're an industry that hasn't seen a cost of living increase, a proper one, in 15 years. You know, we're working 40 to 70% behind the cost of inflation. So what do you do about that? Do you just rely on that 2% COLA that comes in from the Office of Mental Health, which is chump change in your paycheck? So we talked to our executive director, and what we've started to do is use developers' fees to offer people a bonus at the end of the year, both on Long Island and in the city. if you do a project and you're the primary developer and a partner, you often get a sizable developer's fee that you can then hold on to. Obviously, part of that is investment in future capital and construction projects, but you can also use it for your staff. So offering something more than a baseline COLA is important, and really looking at salaries across the board to see how competitive they are. We did a cost survey a couple of years back on, what case managers pay, and we realized that we were 3,000 to 5,000 behind the curve, and we needed to step that up in order to hold on to a quality workforce. Spiritual. So can hop to the next slide beyond that. Yeah.
There's the
One more.
sparks.
Yeah, one more. Yeah. So past couple of years, we've done a work retreat, and you may ask yourself, well, how can they manage that? The big social service agency. Well, there are actually places in the community that are pretty affordable for an overnight stay. And one of them is this place, the Garrison Institute, which is up on the Hudson River, about an hour from here. It's an old Catholic church building that became a Buddhist retreat space. So it's almost like an old school dormitory. There are these very rustic rooms where you just have a bed and a table, but people can spend the night there. And so we decided last year that we were going to go up and do a retreat and focus on mindfulness. And we brought in an author who had written a book about meditation and mindfulness to do a couple of workshops with staff, really teaching simple meditation techniques, self-meditation, things that you can do on your own spare time. And this place, the Garrison Institute, is not that expensive. It's affordable. We went back just this year, a couple of weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. And had a guy named Mark Lesser come out and talk to us again about mindfulness practice. So the idea of having a retreat, even not necessarily going away, it's obviously great to get out of town, but to have a getaway from the workspace, so important. And we started, we had about 75 people go last year, and the hope is that word will spread and staff will talk to one another and those preconceptions will disappear. It's a all vegetarian food retreat, which puts some people off, but the food is actually really delicious, and you have staff talk about how great that is too, and it helps. So we'll switch back to that slide. Let's see. So I don't think I'm going to spend too much time on those others. We're going to go into a couple of them. The rest of my crew here is going to talk. We'll go to the next slide about our critical incident and stress management team, our training committee, and Andrea is also going to talk about how she took some of these tips and techniques and applied it to her own program and staff. Thanks.
You could go back to that other one. Hi, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me in the back? Good morning. My name is Robin Smith. I'm going to talk about our Critical Incident Stress Management Team, CISM, as we're referred to, and then kind of segue into talking about self-care. We started out with our CISM team and then really saw how our self-care workshops developed from that and really grew. And now it's a little bit of the reverse. We do have a lot of self-care and pre-education before to help mitigate critical incidents. So I'll tell you a little bit about our team. We have 9 staff members on our Critical Incident Stress Management team. We rolled it out in 2014. In 2013, there was a critical incident at one of our sites, an unexpected client death that really shook the program, shook the staff, threw everything out of equilibrium. We weren't really experiencing many client deaths back then. So not that they're all significant, and we treat them all as such, but it was it was profound. It was not common at the time. And a colleague and I, both social workers, instinctually are looking to support. We were directors also at the time. We're looking to support our colleague, his program, his staff, trying to do so, and then thinking maybe there's a better way. We don't want to do more harm. We were looking into grief counseling certificate and did some research, and we came across critical incident stress management. We put together a proposal, agency buy-in is everything. Jim mentioned, our executive director, COO now, put together a proposal and said, we can expect as we grow and expand and house more individuals and hire more staff that we're going to be exposed to more critical incidents. It makes sense. We're growing. Our population is aging. Here's a way we can help support our team, do it effectively, have training to do it. Form a team. At the time, there was just 3 of us that started. We rolled out in 2014. The agency supported us wholeheartedly, sent us to trainings throughout the Northeast. We're trained in individual crisis intervention, group crisis intervention, advanced group crisis intervention. And then we kind of segued into different specialized areas. We're serving a lot of veterans, so we attended veterans trainings and spiritual trainings, and just to have like a diverse knowledge base for our team. We rolled out in 2014. And basically how that worked is if there was a critical incident, which could be anything, that's personal too. What one person or program deems as a critical incident, another may not be so affected. Any kind of traumatic event that's unexpected death or even expected death or violent episode, anything that's throwing everything off equilibrium. The team is notified, and we do, and pretty much within 24-hour, usually on-site response. At the time, the 3 of us were based on Long Island, so we were traveling into Brooklyn weekends, at night, anytime to respond to the site for a critical incident to support the team, the staff, and the residents. The agency has always had a focus on wellness for clients. Wellness self-management groups, diabetes self-management groups, sending staff to smoking cessation, train the trainer. We bring in OT students, nursing students. The formulation of the CISM team really was the beginning of expanding this whole focus on wellness to the whole entire agency, not only the clients, but also to the staff. And it kind of segued into the self-care. So that's our tremendous team that we have now. One of the original team, my colleague who started it with me, she relocated out of state, so then it was down to 2. So we clearly knew the benefits of the team were incredible. The feedback was incredible. I know Dan, was being in supported housing. We supported his team a lot. So we really saw the need to expand, to pull in our colleagues in New York to support us there too. We have a great team. So our goal is to support, to respond, to educate, to support, to try to get everything back and everyone back to pre-incident levels of functioning. And it's incredible that we rolled this out in the beginning of 2014 and we're in 2019 and running strong with this. This whole team, it's really a multi-step. It's interesting now because now we do a lot of pre-education with regard to self-care, really guarding against compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress. So we developed a team, went right into responding to events, and now have circled back around to giving some education about it. So I'm going to get into more of the steps that we do, but it is a multi-step system that we're using to respond. crisis intervention. It's short term. We're looking to get in. We're looking to stabilize. We're looking to support. We're looking to get it back to pre-levels of functioning, and then we're stepping out. But of course, we're referring. We do follow-up. We follow up on phone call, emails. Whatever support is needed, we'll continue to do. But the point is to get in, to offer immediate support. Can't see what that is. That's okay. Critical incident, I spoke about that. That's personal. Depends, what we've experienced in the past year. Our folks are aging. Our folks are aging across our agency, and we've experienced many client passings this year due to medical issues. Just so many challenges that they're dealing with. So even if it's an expected passing, we still want to honor that experience, honor that passing for the client, honor the experience of the staff. Sometimes our staff are going into an apartment and finding somebody deceased, or trying to perform, CPR on them. I mean, this is, heavy stuff we're asking of our staff, and that's not on their to-do list for the day that they're planning to do. So we have to recognize that and support. Let me just give you some ideas of how this works. The team will be notified of a critical incident. We'll respond on site, at least on the phone, absolutely, depending upon the incident and the response. And we'll do a briefing. So the purpose of this is to get in to provide education, because sometimes if a critical incident happens and it's at one site, it's like the game of telephone. All of a sudden, the incident is changed at another site, and there's rumors about it, and what happened, and how did they pass, and who was involved. So our goal as a team is to get in, to reduce any sense of chaos, to provide some leadership, some education, some support, some information. Here's what you may experience, what you could, may not, on an emotional level, spiritual level, physical level. Just to kind of give that education and to talk about what happens to your body when you're exposed to a critical incident, how what's released, the chemicals that are released in the body, and the importance of drinking water for, throughout the day to rid the body of those chemicals, and just to kind of talk about what may be expected from a body response to that, and giving education so they're knowing, okay, this is okay if this happens, and I'm going to drink and try to do some exercise. And we always provide our cell phone numbers. They could reach out, and oftentimes, depending on the incident or if what the level of it is, we'll reach out on their cell phones at night or weekends, just to kind of touch base and touch them and check in and see how they're doing. And then we'll do a diffusing, so it's a little bit more, we bring the group together. We've done this for residents too. I think there was an attempted suicide at one of our sites years back, and the residents were affected. It's a well-known resident. They were okay, thankfully. We brought the residents together to talk about it and process it. But oftentimes we'll bring the staff together. We'll talk about it. We try not to go too deep. Debriefing is also a part of this, but we really have not had to go there. There's some controversy on the debriefing part. We're not looking to re-traumatize, and we haven't had to go that far. We're doing diffusing. They're talking about it. We're processing it. We're normalizing it. We're talking about self-care and giving a lot of educational handouts and materials at that time. So they can, process it and understand it a little better. This really segued into all of our work about self-care, which is really, it's amazing how our agency, how this has taken hold, even the retreat. We're really focusing on the whole entire agency for mindfulness, for self-care. It's my mantra, for those of you that know me. It's really important for us as caregivers, or us caring for supervising staff who are direct care. We may have had caregiver informally stamped on our head our whole lives. You're that person everybody's been going to, friends, family, that go-to person. Giving in your work, giving to your staff, giving to your clients. It's really important. How many here make to-do lists every day? Anybody list makers? Yeah. Are you ever number one on your list? Are you ever on your list? Yeah, that's a problem. It's not about us, but we have to make it about us because we have to make it about us to self-preserve and to stay engaged in our work and to keep our staff engaged. So I ask you to think about how you can put yourself on your to-do list, if not tonight, tomorrow. What can you do for yourself? One little thing that you can do for yourself. Take a walk, listen to music, write in a journal, meditate, do something for yourself. Put yourself on the to-do list. Really, really important to do. It takes a commitment to it. You're committed to your work. You're here. You're at this conference. You're at a workshop, first thing, to learn more, to hear more. It's a commitment. It takes a commitment to yourself. You're committed to your clients, to their care, to your staff, to your programs. It takes a commitment to yourself. And it's personal. Self-care is personal. Somebody could think a mani-pedi is self-care. Somebody could think walking the dog is self-care. Some people think washing the dishes is self-care. It's like a mindless activity. Think about what makes you feel okay, what brings you some comfort and peace, whether it's going to the gym after work, whether it's not going to the gym and having a glass of wine when you get home. Whatever it is that's self-care to you is what I'm going to ask you to give some thought to. Just going to do a little activity with you on self-care. This is really big on our staff. I've done several self-care workshops, and then I did a mindfulness workshop. And one of the staff at the mindfulness, he said, "Where's that switch on, switch off?" So I'm putting it in everything now. So let me just talk a little bit about this. I'm trained in community disaster response, and at one of those trainings, we talked about how do we protect ourselves? How do we guard against secondary traumatic stress and prevent against compassion fatigue? And one of the participants there talked about how she envisions putting armor on. She envisions the helmet and the plated armor to go over her chest. And to me, that was just heavy for me. But that worked for her. So I'm going to tell you how I switch on and off, and I think this is really important. I try to do this. I get caught up, just like all of us, in the day-to-day and don't do this all the time, but I try to remind myself to do this. So in the morning for me, when I'm getting up and I'm getting ready for work, I envision I'm switching on, and that means whatever I'm putting on for the day, a suit, dress, skirt, whatever I'm putting on, that is my signal that I am switching on. So for me, it's not armor, but it's my work clothes. I'm switching on. I'm mentally preparing. I don't know what my day is going to look like. We have our intention. We have our list. We think we're going to accomplish. We walk in, and it could be totally different. We never know. We have to be prepared for the unexpected. I'm getting dressed. I'm switching on. I'm switching my mindset from my family, my home, my animals, everything else to, my job, my staff, my programs, starting to switch on. I'm driving to the office. I've got KTU on, getting myself ready. Some people have nothing on, no music, quiet. I have KTU, getting myself ready, switching on. That's all part of my process of switching on. And then I'm there for my day. On the way home, I have nothing on. It's quiet, music-wise. Quiet, I'm driving home. There's no music. It's silent. I'm starting to switch off. It doesn't matter how late I've worked, how hungry I am. When I get in the door, if I'm going straight home, I am changing out of my work clothes. I will not sit and eat in my work clothes. I could be I'm starving, but it's like I have to switch off and transition into my role at home and all that entails. Now, we're on call 24/7, so sometimes we know that in the back. If you're a manager, you're a director, you're on call 24/7. You still have to make a conscious effort to switch off. You could be called. You'll get back. You'll get on when you need to. You make a conscious effort. For me, it's changing into something comfy, and then I can enjoy my meal and switch off. Whatever works for you, think about it. Think about what your routine is. Do you go to the gym after work? then you envision you're switching off after the job. You're heading to the gym. You're changing into your gym clothes. You're switching off. That helps you self-preserve. Resiliency. We talk about our folks all the time, our clients. Wow, they're so resilient. They have all these challenges. They're so resilient. We're resilient. Our teams are resilient. It takes a commitment to keep building our resiliency. We have to be, I think 2 hallmarks of my work style are positivity and kindness. Positivity is so important. Sometimes the job can be overwhelming. The challenges seem great. But the joy is there. We often just have to reach for the joy. The other things come right to our mind. Okay, wow, this client is struggling, and okay, here's what's going on here. There are joyful moments. There are successes and positives. You have to reach for those. That's our job to do that. Find a sense of purpose. Like Jim spoke about, we're trying to really provide opportunities for staff to move, to grow, to learn, to mentor. So they're not feeling stagnant. They're feeling like there's something to look forward to. And even if it means they're leaving us, hopefully not, but moving on, we're still committed to helping them do that and find their path. Be optimistic. Establish goals. We're making goals for clients. Goal plan, treatment plan, service plan, support plan. What about our plans? What about our goals? Problem solving. Work towards solving your problems. Don't sit in them. There's always a solution, and that's empowering. Here's a little tip to take away. Just trying to give you a couple of little tidbits that maybe you can take back to your teams or just use for yourself. This is a way to build resiliency. I call it soft belly meditation. We have a vagus nerve that runs through our body. And when we engage the vagus nerve, it really can bring down systems in your body, lower blood pressure, reduce, headaches. Anybody has that knot in their stomach, just helps bring all your systems down. And a way to engage that vagus nerve is what I call soft belly meditation. And of course, this is great for clients, but this is all about you and your team. So here's something you can do. You're feeling anxious or stressed or upset or whatever the emotion is that's kind of interfering. You check in on a scale of 1 to 5. Where is it? Where is that emotion on the scale? 4? Okay, it's a 4. So you're going to do some soft belly meditation. So you're going to do, we all know, the deep breathing, the belly breaths. You're breathing in when you're nervous, when you're upset, you're stressed. We're doing a lot of chest breathing. We're not getting that oxygen in. You want to do that deep belly breathing, engaging the belly, stimulating the vagus nerve. So you're doing a few deep breaths in and out, and you do a few of those. And then you check in again. Where am I? Did I bring it to a 3? And what you're doing here is you're moving from the emotional to the cognitive. The emotion of stress, worry, anxiety, whatever it is, frustration. Now you've added a cognitive element, which kind of switches it. It switches the mindset. You check in. Did I bring it down to a 3? Okay. Do I want to do some more soft belly meditation? Am I looking to bring it down a bit more? Do it again and bring it down to where you're comfortable to continue moving on. This is great for you to do at your staff meeting to start out, to ground your team, to get them ready and present. I love this. I talk a lot about staying in your lane, which I think is on the next slide. But our whole focus and our focus with the retreat and the mindfulness is just trying to stay present. Today and right now is the only thing we can really focus on. Yesterday's over. Tomorrow didn't happen yet. So being present, being mindful right now, and thank you for being present with us this morning, is really important to focus on. And I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. Staying in your lane. How many of you are driving on the road? Okay. And even if you're not, even if you're on the train, you envision yourself on the road, on the train, on on a 3-lane highway, and this is our life. And we're in the center lane. That's the present. But oftentimes, our mind wanders to the past. And I don't know about anybody else that drives, but sometimes I'll get to a street and I'm like, wow, I'm here already? I like automatic pilot getting there, not mindful, thinking about, I don't know where I'm thinking, kind of refocusing myself, stay in this present lane. Because when we go to the past, we do a lot of rehashing there. We're rehashing. There is joy to be found in the past too, but for some reason, why do we always go to the negative stuff? Well, I wish we would have done that. Why did that happen? I'm sad about that. It's how we're hardwired. So there's a lot of rehashing in the past that we really can do nothing about right now. And then if we move ahead over to the other lane, to the present, we're doing a lot of rehearsing. Okay, I'm worried about this. What is this? A lot of anxiety comes with that. We're planning, we're rehearsing, we're preparing, and that could be stressful. So if you find yourself, wherever you are, on your lane, and you're starting to rehash or rehearse, that's your signal to think about coming to your present lane, staying in your lane, and trying to stay in the present and focused on that, because that's what we have control over right then. We give out a lot of resources, and I could send these if anybody's interested. You could email me at robinsmith@concernhousing.org, and I have my card up here too. We give out self-care assessments to staff, self-care plans, the ProQual will have them do, a lot of different self-care tools that we give out. And I could get those to you if you'd like. Thank you. I'm going to hand it on to Dan to talk about the training committee.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. So again, I'm Daniel Stern. I'm the Assistant Director for Concern's Long Island Supported Housing Program. And so I wanted to talk to you a bit about our training committee and sort of how it came to be and what it is that we do and how you can really potentially create something like this in your own organization if you don't have something already. So I'm sure your agencies are probably a lot like ours in the sense that as we have grown organizationally, we are getting a much more diverse and in many cases more clinically complicated group of folks than we had in the past. And as the needs of our tenants and our residents has changed, the needs of our staff has changed. And you know, certainly prior to the origins of this committee, we utilized community trainings. We used online training resources like Relias. I don't know if folks are familiar with Relias trainings. But there wasn't sort of really a more systematic or a broader approach for the organization. So, you know, as we were expanding and growing and we were hearing from our staff what they wanted to hear and what they wanted to see, we said we really need to formalize this and we need to dedicate ourselves to this process and making sure that, you know, the direct care staff, and we, you know, supervisors and such are doing everything that we can to keep ourselves current and keep ourselves healthy. And that way we can support one another in this work. We do a lot of good work every day, but also, as Robin was saying, some of it can be very challenging and very stressful work. So we wanted to respect that and do what we could to, you know, make sure our staff were supported in what they were doing. So in April of 2015, we kicked off our training committee. I think a key thing to the longevity and success that we've had is that everyone who's on the committee, we're all in. We are committed to ensuring the continuation of what we offer. And, you know, this is not something that we're getting separate funding for. This is not something that is a separate job. Everyone on the committee, this is something they're doing in addition to their regular job. But they value what we're doing and they see the benefit. And so they make sure that they come. And we've met pretty much every month for going on, you know, more than 4 years now. And what we do is, we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. There are a lot of organizations out there that offer training. Many of them are even in this room. So we utilize those strengths, and we formalize the process of making sure that information about those resources is getting out to staff in a systematic way. But we are also developing and rolling out our own trainings based on staff interest and need. So right now we have a membership of 21 people representing 12 different departments and sites. And one of the things I also want to emphasize is this is not all for just direct care staff. This is for everyone in the organization. This is for the receptionists. This is for our accounting staff, our property management staff. Everyone in the organization has a seat at our table because everyone has something that they want to know and they want to learn about. And so we want to make sure that they have representation and have a voice in what we develop. So there's a couple of different ways that we get information to and from staff across the organization. Every year, we offer a web-based needs assessment survey, and we, certainly have some ideas about what we think might be of interest to staff, but it's really a mechanism for them to tell us what they want and what they need. So there's, we usually offer 20 or 30 potential topics that we could offer training on or connect people to trainings about. But then we also have a section where they can write in what it is that they want to learn about or what maybe they're struggling with and they want to know more about or do better at. But we also, in addition to doing this annual survey, we publish a quarterly newsletter. So what we're trying to do with that is make sure that everyone in the organization keeps training a part of their thinking and their awareness, and making sure that they know and they understand that the organization values continued education, and that we are encouraging everybody to, if you hear about a training or if you want a training, make sure you're communicating that to us, so that way we can either connect you to one that's already out there, or maybe it's something that we need to build and develop ourselves. But we want to make sure that people feel comfortable asking for the support and the information that they need. So as Jim was saying in the beginning, really one of the key things is that we have buy-in throughout the entire organization. It's not just the committee sort of pushing our stuff on everybody. It's everyone from our executive director on down, valuing what we can potentially offer. One of the ways that we keep it fresh for everybody is we make sure that we discuss training every other week when we have our administration meeting, and that's across the entire organization, Long Island as well as New York City staff. So that gives the committee a chance to get our information out to all the senior staff in the organization for them to bring back to their staff. But it also gives the directors, the coordinators, a chance to bring to us what they're hearing and what they're seeing and what they're experiencing at their sites. And that way, if there's something that's a particular interest to, let's say, New York City staff, we can see what our resources are that we can provide to them and support them. So again, we're developing our own trainings and curriculums, but we're also using a lot of the resources that are out there and just making sure that we're getting that information out to staff, so that because perhaps there's a training that one staff knows about because they're signed up to a particular news digest. Do folks sign up for those news digests from different organizations that talk about trainings and so on? Those are very helpful. It's a good way to find out what's happening in the larger community. So what we do is we sign up for a lot of those too, and we make sure that we let people know about some of the trainings that are out there and also the stuff that we're working on. So some of the training topics that we've offered specific to wellness, coping with grief and loss. Robin talked a lot about that. And this is something that we offer not just after a critical incident happens, but before. Certainly in our line staff, we have a lot of people coming in that are maybe either new to the organization or new to the field, and they may not have had to necessarily contend with some of the more difficult and stressful situations. So this gives us a chance to talk about this stuff in an open and sort of a safe way, and maybe help people to prepare if they haven't had this experience or those experiences, or if they have, a chance for them to sort of process that with their peers. So we've done that. We have a workshop that we've used from our employee assistance program called Becoming Resilient and Adapting to Change. If you don't use your EAP programs, I would encourage you to talk to them and see what they offer. On Long Island, our EAP offers free trainings. So, free isn't everybody's budget, right? And certainly the feedback we got when we scheduled a session with their trainer was that it was incredibly helpful and useful information. The Power of Optimism, another one. De-escalation and safety. This is a training based on the OMH training. Have folks here taken the OMH version of this before? If not, I would encourage you to do so. It's really helpful in terms of giving staff the tools they need to walk into a situation that may be in the process of escalating and help them, if possible, to de-escalate the situation and get people to back away from tipping into a potential violent or serious situation. We also have offered trainings on understanding and managing diabetes, and this is not just for our tenants, it's also for staff. Many of our staff have diabetes as well, and they find this information helpful. And avoiding slips, trips, and falls. Some of our sites, I don't know about you, but some of my sites can be a little cluttered, busy. And so we have things that we can do to help our staff and our tenants to navigate their community responsibility safely. Other training topics that we've done, understanding K2 and SPICE. That was one that was really a desperate need that we developed many years ago when K2 was really exploding. So we built a training specifically about that so that staff could learn what it is and what it looks like, what the effects can be on tenants and potentially on staff. And that's something that we do on a regular basis. Working with formerly homeless people. I directly supervise our Shelter Plus Care programs. I work with the chronically homeless folks. And they have some, in many ways, some different needs than some of our non-chronically homeless folks. So this training is really about that. The stages of change, which is a very, very good model for not just addressing things like addiction, but really any kind of change that a person may want to accomplish in their lives. Effective documentation, helping staff to understand what's a good way to collaborate with our tenants to write goal plans that are meaningful for them. What you don't want is to go into a meeting with a tenant and say, so what are your goals? What's on your support plan? And they're like, I don't know. Because maybe they don't have an investment in whatever the goals are. This is to help staff to really engage with the tenant and say, well, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to work on? Because maybe what it is that motivates them isn't necessarily what we are thinking would be the right thing for them, but we want this to be a tenant-driven, a resident-driven process. Overview of mental health diagnoses. This is a training that we really designed for our non-clinical staff, so for our receptionists, for our maintenance staff. These are folks that are working with our tenants every day, going into their homes potentially. And they, in most cases, don't have a clinical training in what serious mental illness is, what symptoms are, for people struggling with addiction, what those behaviors look like. So these trainings are really for them to help them to get at least a fundamental understanding of our folks so that they can perhaps work with them more effectively. Also, employment information for case managers. Organizationally, we're really putting a strong emphasis on getting as many people to work who want to work as possible. So this is a way for us to make sure we're getting that information out to staff in a meaningful way, as well as a training offered by the Office of Mental Health, Hearing Distressing Voices. Has anybody here taken that training before? Okay, if you haven't, I would really encourage that you give it a go. It really helps you to get a good personal understanding of what it's like to experience hearing voices. It gives you a level of really understanding and empathy with our folks that you may not necessarily have had before. So one other thing that came out of our committee is yoga and meditation. So we have staff that are trained in yoga practice as well as meditation, and we have staff that offer monthly meditation and yoga classes for our staff. We have it right now, a 1-hour class. It's currently once a month, and they are rotating that around to different sites because we want to get that out there to everybody, give everybody the chance to take at least a 1-hour break once a month from their work, that really, rewarding but challenging work, and, take care of themselves. And we're in the process of expanding that from our Long Island programs, because currently the staff we have are Long Island staff, but we're in the process of rolling that out to New York City staff as well. So there are internal and external resources, of course. I mentioned EAP. We also have a mobile residential support team. I don't know if folks are familiar with that model, but that is a team approach. It's concerned staff, but it's multidisciplinary. We have wellness specialists, substance abuse specialists, peer specialists, nurse, and they all can collaborate with our tenants to help them. If this is really designed for people who are perhaps trending towards a crisis, to hopefully trend away from that. But our MRST team, the staff members of that team have a lot of experience and expertise, particularly around the medical stuff, which speaking for myself, is not my forte, but our nurses have come out and really given presentations on medical diagnoses and such that was very helpful for other staff. And of course, I mentioned Relias, trainings to the Office of Mental Health, Center for Urban Community Services based in New York City, and another organization on Long Island called LICAD. They have a lot of different trainings on people who are struggling with addiction or in recovery from addiction. So right now we have a lot of stuff in development. And the committee really does this as a collaborative approach. We sort of divide and conquer. One of the things that I think is helpful for our committee to maintain its momentum is we have 2 co-chairs. Robin and I co-chair the committee. Because we have a large organization, there's always a lot going on. And by having 2 co-chairs, it ensures that if one person is too busy to chair the meeting, there's usually, the other person is usually available. And so it keeps the momentum, it keeps the focus on what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to get done in terms of getting support out to staff. But right now, our committee is working on developing our own cultural competency curriculum. We're also working on a fire safety and prevention curriculum. We were just in the process of setting up 2 trainings for staff on these topics. I don't know about y'all, but some of our folks don't necessarily cook that safely or smoke that safely. So these are trainings to help our staff to really make sure that they have an eye out for things that could potentially be fire risks down the road. Dual recovery. Certainly we want to, do what we can to get the resources out there to folks and make sure that people have the skills they need to work with. At least I can certainly say from my programs, I'm seeing a lot more people that are in active use coming to us, that were chronically homeless. And so our staff really need to have a core competency in working with folks that maybe aren't necessarily at the point where they're ready to even reduce or stop using. And as I said, we're really working on focusing some of our efforts on promoting employment amongst our folks. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Closer? Okay. I'm Andrea Dogostiano. I'm both on the SISM committee and the training committee. I'm the Director of Concerns Brooklyn Scatter Site Supportive Housing Program based in East New York. And I'm also the director of our single site residence. It's permanent independent housing. We have 90 units, 55 of which are supportive studios, and the remaining are 1 and 2 bedroom units for individuals and families, affordable low-income units. And I want to start by saying it's a beautiful building, and I think it actually sets the tone for health and wellness and self-care when you walk in. It's well built, as all concerned buildings are, beautifully lit. We have a beautiful roof terrace that overlooks North Brooklyn and the Manhattan skyline. We have a beautiful backyard with a garden where we grow herbs and vegetables. The tenants participate in that, both supportive and affordable. Right now we're growing cucumbers, tomatoes, eggplant, squash, collard greens, Swiss chard, blueberries, and I'm sure I've forgotten a few. We have a gym in the building that's available for staff to use, for tenants to use. We have a community room with a TV, a ping pong table, a library, a computer room, free Wi-Fi for all of the residents, and a laundry room. So I think just from walking into the building, you can tell that the agency really takes a holistic approach, both towards the residents and the staff. And like all of my colleagues have said, it starts from the top down. Our CEO is very much invested on health and wellness. We're not just focused on numbers and progress notes and the visits, but we really care about everyone's well-being. And I just put this slide up here because, like I said, it starts from the top down. And I think this sort of reflects my approach within my programs. And I'll just read this for you guys. It says the democratic leadership style, also called the participative style, is a combination of the autocratic, which is focused on results and efficiency, really important in this field, and the laissez-faire approach, which is all about delegating tasks and providing little supervision. It's best when staff is experienced and well-trained. A democratic leader is someone who asks for input, who considers feedback from their team before making a decision. Because team members feel their voice is heard and their contributions matter, a democratic leadership style is often credited with fostering higher levels of employee engagement and workplace satisfaction. Because this type of leadership drives discussion and participation, it's an excellent style for organizations focused on creativity and innovation. And I think this description sort of embodies what the approach that I take with my team. So some of the things that I do to set the culture of the program, and I don't think this was consciously in my head until I had to sort of think about what I was going to say here, is to realize you don't have all the answers. And really, it's really important with who you surround yourself with. I was really blessed coming into this agency. I was hired because Concerned Bergen, my single-site residence, was newly being built. So I was really blessed to have been able to interview and choose my staff. They all have diverse backgrounds, diverse work experiences and interests, different personalities, but I really think the glue that makes it all work is our commitment to the work and the team approach. I asked for input when problem solving. For instance, when my first program supervisor resigned, I had a few resumes, really solid candidates, actually all internal applicants within the agency, and it was so difficult to make a decision. I was really stumped. I thought anyone would do such a great job, so I pulled my team in. I had my staff conduct the group. They had group interviews with each candidate, and I figured they're going to be impacted by the person we bring into the team. So I think as much as I can do that going forward, I would like to continue to do that when we have a vacancy, even if it's for a case manager position potentially, because I think the culture of the program is really important. And I got really great feedback about that process from my staff. So that's one example of what I do to give my staff input in the decision-making process. Also giving staff opportunities to get involved in programming. My staff drive most of the activities that we have on site in the building. Oftentimes, they're just coming to me and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to have a dinner for this particular holiday coming up. And a lot of it's their time and effort they're putting into it. They're doing the cooking. Some of the groups we offer at Bergen is a workout group. And these are groups led by our staff or the tenants. So we have a workout group, a yoga group, a cooking group that we're hoping to reestablish again. We have monthly bingo night that's very, very popular with both the supportive tenants, the affordable tenants, the children in the building participate. Like I said, there are children and families in the building. So it's really inclusive. Whenever we have our groups, it's not solely for the supportive tenants. Everyone is welcome. And that's been the culture that's been fostered in the building. When we've had visiting professionals come to our site to visit, we often have a group from the Netherlands that comes to visit from time to time, and I invite the tenants to speak. One of the things they say is they feel like we're all a family, tenants and staff included. We do a talent show and open mic night periodically, and again, that was staff-driven. Holiday celebrations, we do a Mother's Day brunch, Father's Day dinner, annual Memorial Day barbecue. We actually invite the precinct to that, too. We want to get the community involved as well when we have certain activities in the building. Decorating the residence for the holidays. My staff take it upon themselves, sometimes using their own money. We'll go to Dollar Tree and pick up these decorations, and I come into work and my door is decorated some days. So it's also a program newsletter that we do. So all of this is driven by the staff. They want to do these things, and I like to think it's part of the approach I have. I'm very open. I have an open door policy. I like to ask for feedback. So during supervision, during staff meetings, during clinical meetings, wherever possible, I say, is there anything I should be doing differently? Is there anything I can be doing better to support you? I check in with staff periodically to say, how are you feeling in your role? It might be a year or two in. July will make 3 years I'm with the agency. But I'm constantly checking in for feedback. And the last thing on this slide is vulnerability and transparency. I'm someone, I guess I've always had to work on erecting my boundaries. I'm not good at that. I'm very open, and if I'm having a challenging time, my staff is aware of it. I have a 22-month-old daughter. Sometimes my mornings aren't always smooth. Sometimes there's train traffic. I find myself meditating on my way into work sometimes, but sometimes I come in, I'm not my 100%. I'm not in the best place. So I think two key people on my team is my program supervisor and my admin assistant. And if I'm not in the best place, I'm transparent about that. And I might tell my supervisor, look, it's a rough day today. If things come up, I might need you to handle this. And we support each other. And I think by me doing that, my staff is open to come and talk about when they're struggling, if they're having a bad day. We all have a lot on our plate. We have, people on my staff that are still in school. Some people are managing 2 jobs and families, and we're open with each other. We've created that culture. I've been in other programs where staff don't feel like they can even have an informal conversation. Hey, how was your weekend? People are so just focused on the work. You don't even have time to just even sit and have lunch, or hey, let's go for a walk on our lunch break. And I knew coming in that wasn't the culture that I wanted to have in my program. I want my staff to come to work. There was a time I came in on a weekend because we were having an event and I just wanted to check in, and it was maybe 6 p.m. and one of my staff was still there, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And she was like, I like being at work. It wasn't like a rush to get out the door. People genuinely enjoy coming to work. We spend most of our time at work, right? Most of our week is spent at work. So as much as you can do to create an environment where you want to come, I think that's a blessing. Some other things that I do with my staff that I started is an annual staff appreciation lunch. I'm thankful that the agency supports that with funds, but starting this year, I'm supplementing that and adding to that. They give us a minimum that we could spend per person, and I'm supplementing that because I do appreciate my staff. I want them to know that I genuinely value everything they bring to the table. So I'm paying for some of that out of my own pocket. That's something that I'm planning to do. And that has been so popular that my staff has wanted other opportunities for us to socialize and get to know each other outside of the workplace. I know that's not everybody. Some people are just focused on, coming to work, but I think it has strengthened us as a team. We genuinely enjoy each other. So we recently started a bowling night. One Saturday evening, we all went out, and that was really fun, and we plan to build upon that. One evening, we invited someone to actually come to the site and do some henna for the staff. So that was an opportunity for staff to bond as well. And that was driven by the staff. An email was sent out to everyone, hey, I have this idea, who's interested, and everyone was on board. We also invite, too, I will say, our maintenance and property management staff. So when we have events like this, our maintenance staff and our super is invited as well. It's not just the clinical team. Celebrating each other. We do individual birthday celebrations at the program. Our staff, whenever it's one of our birthdays, we celebrate each other. We get a cake, we get food, we give gifts, we do these things. Recently, one of my staff attained her bachelor's degree. We took her out to dinner on, off hours. So these are just some of the things that I do. I'm not saying you all have to do this, but this is what I do. Additionally, something that Concern does is gives everyone a day off on their anniversary. They encourage staff to take a day off when you've reached your anniversary date of hire each year. So that's something staff looks forward to. You definitely got to get buy-in from the top. That starts from the top. Also, to just supporting each other. We show genuine care and concern where staff have experienced losses. This past year has been particularly challenging for my program. We lost, a few tenants. And so just rallying and supporting each other with, the CISM team as well, but also personally. There have been some personal losses that staff have experienced. So sometimes we'll get together, we'll get a card, we'll pitch in and give money and things of that nature. And there's a team approach. Like I said, if I'm not doing well one day, my supervisor steps up and assists. If one staff is not feeling well, my staff will pitch in and say, hey, I'll take care of your unit inspections this day. And I don't have to ask for this to be done. They do it themselves. Health and wellness. So we have a lot of informal conversations around health and wellness. We're aware of each other's goals. We have some that want to put on weight, some that want to build a booty, some that want to lose weight, some that want to go vegan. So we talk about these things and encourage each other. We have a gym in the building. We don't often utilize it maybe as much as we should. So we, want to develop a system, maybe workout buddies, or encourage people to, hey, use the gym on your lunch break. I have a staff that when she clocks out, she'll go use the gym before going home. We talk about drinking water, tips on how to increase your water intake, filling that big bottle, putting the times on it. So you have your goals for by noon, I want to drink this many ounces, and just supporting each other around that. Incorporating more plant-based meals. Something the agency did was give out air fryers to the residents in our building free at no cost in order to encourage healthier eating, safer cooking as well. As Dan mentioned, we've had some difficulties with fires. So that's been very popular. And so we've sort of tried to, even sometimes around lunch, we'll always check it in with hey, what's for lunch? Sometimes people might cook and bring food for each other. And that's the environment that we have. And I hope that continues, that culture. And something I recently started, and this came out of our staff retreat that we recently attended, mindfulness and meditation has been something that was always important to me, though since having a baby, it had been really difficult to incorporate that as I used to daily. So I started this morning mindfulness and meditation in my program. It's been a few weeks now, and I do it every morning, actually. What I thought was going to be maybe a 10 or 15-minute, meditation with tenants and staff, it's turned into an hour-long thing sometimes. The tenants will come, we check in, how is everyone feeling, we'll process how your weekend was, how your night was, then we'll do a meditation, I'll share some of the apps that I use, and then we process that, and the feedback I've gotten from the tenants, it's incredible. And we serve people with severe mental illness, histories of addiction, histories of trauma, and mindfulness and meditation, as you can see, has so many benefits. And I'm hoping, maybe I'll do an official study, but I'm hoping over time that maybe it might reduce some of the tension in the building. So these are just some of the benefits of mindfulness and meditation: stress reduction, increased sense of well-being, a reduction in depression and anxiety, improved self-image, increased positive outlook, enhancing your self-awareness, increasing attention span, memory and mental clarity. It helps you generate kindness towards yourself and others. I always say, if we can't be gentle with ourselves, if we can't be kind towards ourselves, how can we do so towards others, towards our colleagues, towards the tenants that we're working with? It increases your empathy and sense of connectedness, and you could read the rest. Some of the apps that I just listed, some apps that I think for those who may want to take this home and try it yourself: Headspace, B-Zone, and Insight Timer. I really like B-Zone, and that's what I've been using in my groups with my tenants, because there's a function on it called Mood Clinic. And if you're feeling upset, if you're angry, if you're feeling stressed, lonely, negative, anxious, there's something for every emotion. You can choose the emotion, and it walks you through a guided meditation to help relieve you of that negative emotion. And it works. It's about 5 to 7 minutes. So I do this on the subway. I do it when I'm walking, coming into work. I did it on my way coming here. I was a little anxious, so I listened to the one about anxiety. And it really does help. And all it takes is a few minutes of your day to just give yourself that space to be quiet, to focus on your breath, to take more oxygen in. As Robin says, we often are breathing shallowly. We're not literally taking in enough oxygen to think clearer. So my tenants, a lot of them are using it and saying, when they're out in the backyard, that's the one place they're allowed to smoke in the building, in the backyard. Sometimes there can be tension. Someone's playing their music too loud. Someone says something, and arguments could arise. But now they're learning to walk away, maybe go to your room, go into another corner of the yard and do some deep breathing. And they're saying it really has helped. So I hope it continues. The first 2 days, it was myself and one other tenant, and now it's about 4 or 5 of it's growing slowly, but I think that's pretty impressive. Even if it was just one person that benefits, I'd be okay with that. And then the last bit that I would like to incorporate, I haven't started this yet, but is a lunchtime walk and talk. We have a track about 2 blocks away from our program, a park and a track, and just to encourage tenants and staff to get out and move and walk, be it for a few minutes or more. So I'd like to end. I don't know if it will work. We're going to try. It's just a short video on mindfulness and
Copy and paste it.
Oh, is that how it works?
Well, if you want to take a picture of it's about a 3-minute video on YouTube. It's animated, and it just really, it's fun and interesting, and shows all of the benefits of meditation, how it literally rewires your brain to think differently, to you think more positively, and you feel better. Just a few minutes a day, each day, can work wonders. And that's my spiel.
So, we started out by saying that much of this would be intuitive, but what we heard was operationalizing things to change your culture. So we started out with concrete steps, and it started with, leadership buy-in, and then crisis response teams, and then expanded to training teams, and then expanded to additional committees, and they've talked about using volunteers. So what you really heard was sort of a saturation at the agency to address wellness, to address self-care, and to address the trauma and the vicarious and the secondary trauma that we're all working in all the time, but that most of us don't have operationalized systems in our programs and in our organizations, and we haven't operationalized policies and procedures. So when you hear about the culture that Andrea is speaking about, it comes out of the operations that they built at the ground level starting 2015, right? 14? 2014. It's coming out of a crisis when there was a critical incident, when they responded and then started saying, we need more, we need more. So the big takeaway is, because you nod about, yep, I do that in the morning, I get myself ready. But you're walking into an environment where these pieces aren't all plugged in. So your program or your office is stressed out. Or some pieces of it are there and others aren't. Or we don't have executive buy-in. And so you want to take away what are the steps. So we have about 15 minutes for questions. And there's a microphone in the center of the room that works, or you can scream if you're really loud. And it looks like somebody's making themselves. Yep, there is going to. Okay, yes, please.
That was terrific. Thank you. It sounds like a fabulous organization. And a lot of the things that you said, I heard people in the room gasp and like, oh, you guys do that there? We would never do that there. That was sort of the sound that permeated throughout the room. So obviously everything you say sounds terrific. It's great for employees. It's great for retention. It's great morally. However, it seems like you have executive buy-in. Mm-hmm. In order to get executive buy-in, you often have to be able to show sort of a financial impact or benefit to what you're doing. And I'm thinking, like, boy, if these people are so happy and they know how much their company cares for them, there's probably fewer workers' compensation claims. You probably have less turnover. Could you share with us some of the financial benefits you've been able to share with your executive team and with the board of directors to get them to give employees a day off on their anniversary?
Yeah, great question.
Fantastic. Yeah. So we obviously have a turnover like any other agency. There's, line staff that are leaving positions, they're getting burned, and or they're going on to union or hospital jobs, right, that pay way more money. But we also have tracked through satisfaction surveys and HR surveys retention, and there is a considerable amount of folks that have stayed that are 5, 10, 15, 20. We have some folks who've been with the agency for 25 years, and those folks are not leaving. They're taking advantage of the benefits. They're seeing the opportunities that exist. That information definitely gets fed back to our board. When we talk about those financial decisions, it's really important that we get the board to buy into that, that level of decision as well. But it's also about how, as I said earlier, how some of the savings are spent. If you are constantly developing programs and you have some rolling money, it's so important to invest some of that back into your workforce, and see that as an important buy-in. So I think we can do a better job of tracking this and talking costs, but we are seeing some effects of that already. Yeah. And also with folks that go back to school, if there's opportunities for folks with graduate degrees to have a position that pays enough in that agency, they're going to stay,
Yep. So we do have some quantitative data on that. In the original proposal for the CISM team that I proposed in 2013, part of that was the benefit to the agency with regard to less, staff. There's a critical incident, so perhaps they're leaving early that day, but they're coming back the next day. We're reaching out to them. In the beginning when we started critical incidents, there were days where staff weren't coming back, taking, sick time, personal time, et cetera. Since the inception of the team, I'll reach out to the managers and, are they leaving? Are they going to be there? No, they're here, and they're waiting, and we'll go. So although I don't have the exact numbers with me, we have definitely seen that staff are taking fewer days off after a critical incident, staying, perhaps leaving that day, but coming back, and that has definitely changed over the years since the inception. And just even with regard to the training too, we've back 10 years ago, we had a lot of bachelor level employees, and we have data that we have provide clinical supervision for many of our MHCs and LMSWs, and that has benefited the agency with regard to retaining staff.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Ricardo, case manager for Fortune Society. Just to give you a suggestion, you said you have your groups in the morning, your meditation groups. I'm also a wellness coach, wellness facilitator, certified peer specialist as well. Before you try the groups in the morning, you do your check-ins. I have a song, and maybe you can think about it. It's by Leif Jennings, and it's called It Could Have Been Worse. And if you play that first before you do the check-in, you'll realize then is that a lot of clients, maybe even your staff members, they will feel differently about themselves and it'll be even more uplifting.
Thank you.
Nice.
So it goes back to the optimistic thinking, which I think is really critical in our field, and there's a lot of science behind that, saying that that is really helpful. Are there other? Yes, please.
I just want to ask, is the network itself collectively working to address as a whole, things that even in private industry that they're doing to retain, loyal and employees so far as trending when you can't offer more money?
Right.
I mean, like, a lot of agencies offer some right.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, why are we doing that? A lot of people within their own organization to retain workers are offering all kind of perks that are not tied in financially. I mean, everybody can
Right.
get a raise.
Right.
But why should I sit here and think about, well, let me go to your organization, and we all know that within a social services agency, I mean, basically we all getting paid the same. You might offer a couple of dollars more, but you know
Right.
what? I like where I work.
Right.
And if you could give me something that, would be a trade-off, then yeah, I'll consider staying here. I'm vested. I've been here 5 years, 10 years, and whatever. So what's the big deal of saying, oh, okay, we'll give you, off early every Tuesday so you can go to yoga, which I'm into now and I love it. But, why do I have to wait until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock? What perk can you give me? You can say, okay, well, I'm a morning person. Can I come in an adjusted time period when the kids are out of school during the summer or whatever? I mean, things like that. But are we addressing it not just on an individual agency basis, but as a collective and bargaining tool?
I think that when we were first starting out, we were talking about a culture shift, and that the intuitive part of what you hear doesn't mean we have articulated it clearly enough in our field. And I think the need and the excitement about this workshop directly responds to your question. It shouldn't just be one organization. Because our work is human capital, because we are doing critical work that forms the foundation of our communities, then we have to have systems and policies and procedures in our organization. So if we can't have summer Fridays, can we have morning Tuesdays? What can work in your, and so our executive leadership need to begin having these conversations. And we'll bring this feedback back to Shinny, because I agree that it's a culture shift in our field. It's just, at least we have an example of an organization that's spearheading it and getting it started, and we can point to.
Yeah. I mean, the big push this year was the Bring It Home campaign, which you may have heard of, which was it was all the trade associations focused on a true cost of living adjustment for salaries. But part of that was to highlight people's lives. They had a website with everyday heroes on it, and they had, board members, tenants, line staff, supervisors tell their story and talk about why they go to work every day, why it's more than just that paycheck. I think there was a lot of effort focused on salaries this year, and we didn't get what we hoped for with that, and that will continue. But I think these ideas need to be in the forefront as well across the board. I just want to do a quick plug for this piece right here. It's called the Sweet Seat, and a lot of people that do meditation like to kneel, and for many people, you have a hard time sitting for a long time with your back. You start getting, so this is, my friend's a carpenter, and he developed this two-piece device right here, and basically you just sit on this behind you, and it provides full support to your back. You can sit for hours on end without any issues. So if you'd like to come up and check it out afterwards, it's called the Sweet Seat. Yeah. And it's simplysitting.com is the website.
But
we can ask him for samples. Yeah.
And I do think as we talk about even something as simple as the relaxation in your shoulder, in your body, in your breathing, how you sit at your desk, you can't overlook any of these things in our work, because we go out, there's a tense situation in one of our programs, and we bring it back to our desk and we bring it home to us. There's a lot of fields that aren't doing the kind of work that we're doing, and they're shuffling paper around. It's a great job, but our work is we're carrying a different kind of stress. It's often life or death. There's often a lot of baggage attached to it. So these kinds of things, I don't know if people have had the balance balls at their desk that they sit on. It's to keep you sitting up straight and keep you centered and focused. All of this stuff is the culture change that we need to be aware of in our work. Yeah. Last questions or last shouted questions? Well, I think that really I want to thank the panel. You have done phenomenal work. You are an example for all of us to bring this back. I do think that those of us that don't have executive buy-in at this point can go back and start our own practices with our teams and begin to raise it up to our leadership, so that just because we don't have time with the executive director doesn't mean that we can't begin to do this for ourselves and in our programs, because then it starts from the ground up. Yeah. So I think there's ways to integrate and implement all of these things, but really thank you so much for your time and for all of this.
Thank you.